Above Ground Podcast number 158 with the birthday girl, Amber Hall.
Disclaimer. The hosts of this podcast, Timothy Patrick and Will Foley, are by no means medical professionals. However, having lived experience with mental illness themselves, they have gained useful perspectives on common mental health issues that some of us struggle to overcome on a daily basis. By sharing their stories, they hope to create connection. By creating connection, they hope to help you find your purpose. And through purpose, we can all begin to build the foundation for positive mental health. This is Above Ground Podcast.
Coming at you live with real conversations about mental health from the perspective. It's time for Above Ground Podcast. Now your hosts, TPP and Will Foley.
Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to Above Ground Podcast.
Above Ground Podcast, because you can't serve below.
What's up, Timmy? How we doing this morning, brother?
We're doing another week going by.
I don't see the cup. I don't see the cup in your hand, man. What's in the cup? Is it green tea this morning again?
Same green tea, little honey.
All right, little French roast.
Oh yeah, feeling a little Frenchy today.
Well, I'm feeling a little Frenchy today. You know, that's what happens. That's what happens when we get up in the morning and forget to charge our computer and everything else. I gotta have something.
An extra boost.
I need an extra boost.
Wee.
That's right. Wee. All the way home. This morning on Above Ground Podcast is another interview, and we are joined by Amber Hall. And Amber is a Master of Education. She has a Master's of Education in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. And we met at the 2021 inaugural punk rock flea market at Empire Live here in Albany, and she is a 518er, and we're so happy to have her. Amber, thank you so much for joining us. How are you this morning?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great this morning. Woke up and we've got everything set up. I thankfully did charge my laptop last night, so I am.
Don't judge.
And I charged my headset, so we're all good. I am ready to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's awesome that we get to meet again and have you on, because we've had a little bit of an sidebar conversation before we started recording. So I think today we're going to cover something that is very dear to Amber's heart, and a lot of people out there have dealt with over the last couple of years, and that is healthcare workers in the pandemic and mental health and that whole particular zoo, because there's so many animals in that zoo, and there's so many things that have happened in the last couple of years, and life is obviously not going back to what it used to be. We've obviously gone through a membrane in the matrix to go to this next thing. What do you think is the most pressing issue with where healthcare and mental health come together for the healthcare providers themselves?
It's, for me personally, and for what I've seen from a lot of the individuals I work with, a lot of the students I work with. I'm in school right now to continue into the healthcare field a little further. It's something that we end up teaching the people we work with a lot. It's the balance of it, and it's the out of our hands, out of our control factors. Everything that was working before isn't working now, and it's out of the workers' hands, and it's out of control, really. There's shortages. There's the lack of pay. A lot of times, in this field, you don't get paid because relying on insurances, relying on grants from the government, relying on so many things. And so many times have I heard, or myself has said it, or I've heard other people say, it's like, I could go work as a manager at Aldi's for $28 an hour. That's $5 more than I'm making now an hour. Less stress.
Right, and less stress. But it's like it goes to show that we have really negated the purpose of this type of thing, and we certainly don't have anybody's health interest at hand. Because is it all about big business? Is it all just about somebody's making money? It's not the workers that are making the money necessarily, but somebody's making money somewhere. And I think it's left a big hole in there. Where do you see the biggest gaps?
I mean, thinking back, it's really a lot of it. It's people that go into the field because we want to help. We were led there one way or another, whether it was our own personal experience, whether it was witnessing someone else's experience, or whether it was just that innate wanting to help. And when you get in the field and you're actually working and either schedule change happens or they're scheduling you back to back to back and then you can't breathe, or you're worrying about your paycheck and you're having to pick up side jobs like so many of our teachers do. They have to have a second job in order to make it work. It really just becomes this overall discouragement about like, where does the society and where does the people in charge, what do they really care about? And being in the field and working in it and seeing it, it ultimately just becomes burnout, for lack of a better term. Like, from all areas, I'm trying so hard, so hard. I'm going through stuff myself. It's a unique time where now all the workers are going through the similar things with the pandemic and other things like that, that others are going through. And it's like, we need some leeway, and it isn't going to come from us. It's going to come from those that have more control.
Speaking of personal journeys, can you share a little bit of why you came into this field and what has made you so passionate about it? I mean, to talk to you and to know all the things that you're doing and working on and taking on, I'm really impressed by that, and I'm curious to know where that drive and passion comes from.
No, definitely. It comes from my childhood. Growing up, I've been in counseling myself. The first time was, I say, 4 or 5 years old, and then on and off through life throughout that, both mental health side of it, both substance use side of it as well. And, really, mental health workers saved my life in college. And I always just had this drive to give back. I remember distinctively this one time. It was a school program. Nothing against that. It was amazing. It was just not the right time or place for me to feel comfortable with how it was going on. But I remember, like, I was screaming inside, but on the outside I was so calm and collected. And I was just like, I wish I just could say something. And then I remember thinking, I want to be the person when I grow up, and again, I was probably 5 or 6, that asks a further question, because they just let it be. The person just let it be. And they really had no idea, but in my head, I was like, I want to be the person that doesn't give up for others. And so that's what kind of led me, into the work I do now.
Wow, I mean, to not give up on others. Wow, that's pretty incredible and pretty passionate. I got to commend you for that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So it's
It,
definitely been a journey. So
I think that's a common thing that I've seen across the board with people is that whether it's something inside them that makes them ask, or the experiences and circumstances of the system, be it now that I know more, I see things a bit differently, and I see how things are handled, and I'm just that's that's where it stopped. Like it's not a good place to stop. I feel like we need to ask more and better questions and continue the process.
Yeah, actually, that brings up a good point, Timmy, because we actually have mentioned this within the last few episodes ourselves. Is that the more we learn, it's about asking better questions. It's about asking deeper questions. So you actually just led into a really good spot for us to get into. As someone in the field that you've had all this experience with, what is the next question to ask? Can you give us sort of an example as to just kind of lead us a little bit?
as in, like, working with an individual,
Yeah, if
what's the
someone
next
was
question to
yes,
ask?
if
Oh,
someone was to come to you with an issue, and it doesn't matter what it is, the clinicians are always going to ask, "Are you okay?" or "Are you feeling like you're going to hurt yourself?" And there's certain baseline questions, but what should the next question be?
asking the big ones here this morning.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
hope you got your coffee.
yeah, it really, and I don't think there's any one answer. It really depends on the individual, but kind of one form of, like, what's behind this right now, like, what's been going on, and just asking them kind of openly, and like, hey, what's going on? What led us to this moment right here? And a lot of times that just helps, how it helps with, well, what comes out is going to be what they need to come out in that moment.
I think being open is definitely, you nailed it right there. I think just, obviously it's going to vary depending on person, but just being open and asking those questions, it's like, as if you've listened to any of our stuff, we try to ask some of those questions, ourselves, to the people that we speak with, just because that's how we see it, and that's how we feel strongly about it. It's like you said, how many times you go to the your doctor and they're like, well, are you feeling depressed today? And I always like to throw in a little wrench and be like, well, no more than usual. And they kind of stop in their tracks and they don't know what to say. It's like, just say it, just ask, are you okay? Is there something that you really want to talk? Just be open about it. I think that's an excellent place to start.
Do you think that part of our issue now with healthcare is the way that the system has become? Because when I go see my general practitioner, okay, my family doctor has been my doctor since he literally got into practice. But I've noticed a decline in actual attentiveness nowadays. And I've gone through that depression questionnaire. I go through that depression questionnaire every time I go, and I always say the same thing, that yes, I'm depressed, I have bipolar 2, and yes, I feel suicidal sometimes, but that doesn't mean that anything's going to happen. And that doesn't mean that I want to talk about it right now. But do you think that that's become a big hindrance for us? Is that doctors can't be attentive enough to us anymore? And like, how do we start to create a better system?
And I think a good thing is to kind of look at the why the inattentiveness is happening, which is a bigger thing, is the lack of time, because they're still wanting to see as many patients as they can, but now there's understaffing, there's a higher demand than there are individuals. Definitely, I think it definitely is affecting care in all avenues of it, too. Healthcare, mental health too. I think that extra added stress to the individuals that are working ultimately does affect the work that is being done. Everyone's trying their best, truly trying their best, but ultimately it comes from the top. Like, the whole system needs to change. Do I have the answer right now? Hell no. But if I did, I definitely,
Yeah, you would definitely be making a lot of money from that one.
And it's not even about the money too. It's the helping. But if I had the answer, I think if anyone had the answer, you would think they would help us out, us down here.
I think you'd be getting pushback. I think that's part of it. I think
Yeah.
some people do have some ideas, like you said, maybe not the answer. And I don't know if there is one answer, but if you could get, some 5 top ideas and combine them and try and work together. But, you're getting pushback from, again, up top. They, it all looks good on paper, but when you get into it and you talk to the people that are, on the ground doing the work, it's a different story, and until you get down there in the trenches, it's you just can't understand it.
And like, our systems, like the mental health, the healthcare, don't exist in the vacuum. So you can't just fix one. You really have to fix them all. Like, you have to work on our education. You have to work on our, military, police. You have to work on our housing, our access to food. You have to work on, overall everything has to be worked on. And I think that's one of the difficult aspects, is kind of realizing the bigger picture of everything and the interconnectedness. It's a lot.
I feel that's a good answer. I feel like you're right on the money with that.
It does go to show the interconnectedness of it all. And like we've also been spoon-fed and indoctrinated in separation from everything. We're taught that we're separate from whatever our God is or whatever. We're separate from the earth. We're separate from everything because we sit in these cubicles all day or do these jobs that, everybody needs, everybody needs to feel inspired, and everybody needs something new and novelty at some points. And it becomes a grind on people when they see in and day out. What is one of the biggest, how do you deal with self-care for yourself? You seem, when we were talking before before we started recording, you were talking about how you decide, how you've made this decision for yourself that you need, X amount of hours of this, X amount of hours of that to try to make it all balanced. So what is one of your self-care things that you do for yourself?
It's this whole routine I have. I definitely took many, many years to kind of figure out my baseline of self-care where I'm at now, and it will probably take, to the end of my years above ground, figuring it out and tweaking it more. But really just finding the balance within and learning to say no has been the biggest part for me. I was always the person that would keep the peace outwardly, but in doing so, I would give up the peace within. And now I've started to realize when I work on the peace within, it then overflows and ends up being peace around me.
Wow, that's very cool, man. Timmy, I think you just got it right there. The peace within. Wow. That's what it's all about, the peace within. And I'm slowly trying to find that myself. It's a very tumultuous terrain that you have to navigate at times. So it's very difficult.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of what you said. For when you try and keep the peace on the outside, you're I guess stuffing everything inside, and you can't be of any service to anybody when you're not okay. Which is at the end of the day what it boils down to. So the balance, the self-care is just huge. You had talked early on about the balance. What for, like, whether it's mental health workers, healthcare workers, is there anything besides, because obviously we're all kind of we can't we can't do too much because of the higher ups, I guess you could say. I'm trying to say this in a kind way, and our hands are tied. So what kind of balance could you suggest to others that they may not have heard before, that they could partake in?
They haven't heard before. Ooh, I feel like a lot of things.
Well, they may have, but
yeah. That's a tough one. I think ultimately when you are giving, and a lot of people in this field, they're givers. They want to help others. That's why they went into the field. But again, going back to yourself, I think, is the biggest thing. Like, don't forget about you when you're out there, like, helping others and trying to be there for others. Like, don't forget about yourself. In whatever context that might mean, don't forget about you. Go just spend a day for you, do some deep diving, figure out what it is you need, and then how you can, with what you can control, work it so you are doing better for yourself, because ultimately doing better for yourself will end up doing better for others.
I agree. Again, that's something that I've noticed come across the board with people is, what is it that you want? What do you want to see and how you want to live, kind of thing. Do you, in your, I guess, situations, in your work, do you find that people know the answer to that themselves?
Offhand, if you go up to someone, you're like, hey, what do you need? One, they'll probably be stunned by the question, like, oh, I haven't thought about that. I think it takes a lot of work to figure that out. And a lot of times, painting the picture, like, you're working 60 hours that week, you're exhausted from being on your feet, or the mental capacity to hold space for people. You get home, maybe you are able to shove some food in your mouth and you pass out, maybe, or you sit up in this worry. It depends on the person, and then you get up and you do it again the next day, and again you're catching up the days you might have off. You actually are just catching up on the work that needs to be done, so you don't really get time for you. At least in my experience, my experience in other, and being in the field and having friends in the field. It's really just, taking the time to actually sit down and do some of the work for yourself of, okay, how is my, my balance right now? And most of the time, work is going to be huge, giving is huge. And then like things that you actually want to do, things you're passionate about are minimal to none. And it's like, okay, well, what do I actually want? Where am I now? What do I want? And kind of what do I think is actually achievable with where I am now? Or do I have to make big changes?
Do you think people have a really hard time accepting where they're at? Do you think that do you think that might be the biggest barrier, is just accepting where you are and not being able to verbalize it or even maybe figure it out?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I think, yeah, so often we're kind of stuck in the past, stuck in the future. We can't see what's right in front of us, where we are now, until unfortunately something happens. For example, I was last fall. I was going back to school, trying to work too many hours. I actually ended up getting COVID, wiped me on my butt. And, in that time, I was like, okay, this is a self-reflection time. I had found a good balance. I wasn't working like I used to work. I was working less hours than I used to work in the past. Okay, I thought it was a good balance. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, it wasn't. But it took, again, it took COVID, to weeks of bed rest, things like that to let me figure it out again. Because just not having the time, not realizing, sometimes you don't realize until you realize it. But I think taking the time in the moment and asking others, hey, asking those close to you, hey, I have a question. How do you see me? And sometimes we're scared of that answer a lot of times, but
Yeah, we are.
yeah, but getting that external remark might be good. Well, to others, well, Amber, you tend to overwork yourself. Well, I'm doing a lot better. You're still overworking yourself. All right, all right. I see it. So yeah, it's difficult. We might think we're doing better. We might think we're doing what we need to do, and then something happens, and it's like, well, damn.
That it's sad that it takes us to get punched in the face usually to wake up. It's something usually major. There's all the external factors, and then we are all thrust in the middle of something that we're all going through together. And I think that that's unnerving to people because most people don't view anybody else as themselves. I think that that's like a big part of our conundrum is that we're preached to and talked to about certain things, but yet we don't see the realness behind it. And it's like I don't know. It's difficult to watch.
I feel like there's a lot of talk, but there's not a lot of walk. That's the thing. It's like, you hear, oh, take care of yourself, do this, and then at the same time they're saying, hey, can you take on an extra shift? I know you worked 60 hours this week, but and then if you have somebody that has a problem saying no, they may say, oh, I guess I can do that. So
I got a quick question for you, because you're obviously spending a lot of time being educated, and this has been coming up over the years about student loans and about the amount of debt that you're accruing to get these degrees and these certifications and stuff, but yet the pay doesn't amount to what you've spent. Do you think that there's a better way to educate a professional workforce than the way we're doing it now? Because I know that's been my hindrance as far as trying to get into the field, because I just don't have the money and I don't have the inclination to go back to school for X amount of years. So I went the peer support route. And I mean, obviously with lived experience, that's a great thing, but we don't all have those options. And there are people out there who want to help. Do you think that there might be a better way to look at this? Do you think there's openings to this now?
Short answer, yes. Definitely, I'm without giving a number and trying not to think about it. My loan, thank goodness they're right now deferred, is all I can say. Yeah, there's definitely, again, it goes to the overhauling more systems, it goes, there's definitely a better way, again. Yeah. Wanting to help, there's so many routes that people can go, and I just don't think the knowledge is out there. And so many times, like, some of my good friends are like, hey, how do I get into this? How do I look this up? The knowledge is just not there for finding a counselor, for finding programs, for finding this. And, what does this mean? So teaching about what that is. Me, 17 years old, went to school, initially had a full scholarship, unfortunately lost it. And then I was like, oh no, I like this school. I'm going to stay here. Years later, I keep looking at that number tick up, even though I'm making almost a mortgage payment on my loans, when they're in payment. And I didn't know. I honestly just didn't know. No one told me. And so I think, spreading the knowledge, helping it, creating some of these programs, creating some of these training, using the peer support, I think is an amazing thing, that has come up. I think a lot of having people or positions where people can work while they're going to school, and paying for it or helping them out with not necessarily the like golden handcuffs of now you're tied to us for 5 years or things like that. So I think reworking it in multiple areas, I think, needs to occur.
It's funny, as you're saying that, it's just I can't help but think of kind of going back to what we touched on earlier, is our education system, and bringing some of these life skills into the curriculum, and educating these children on this stuff. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, do you think that would help put a dent in all this that we're talking about?
I think it's definitely a good start. I think having the opportunity in the schools for children to explore what they're interested in, to explore different avenues of things, having the knowledge of, okay, what does this actually mean? Which, a lot of teachers do an amazing job of it. Though having that like intricate, being able to go shadow someone for a day, and being able to be excused from school, to go shadow things like that. I will say New York has a decent, the BOCES program up here. I've lived kind of all around places. BOCES program is a decent program for allowing, high schoolers to be able to have some of these avenues if they're not the typical learner. But I think, yeah, education in the school, so needed. I say, well, I know, I know like the Pythagorean theorem, and I know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, but do I know how to do taxes? Do I know what taking those loans out and what does this interest mean? No. And
how interest works, and yes, absolutely, I fully agree with you on that, 110%.
And then like the mental health side of it too, a lot. There has been so many awesome changes. Classrooms holding like meditations, allowing the time for students. But there's so much more that could be done if, again, the higher ups, if the whole system kind of reworked itself a bit. There's hope. I think that's
that's good.
Thing.
New York
they took the handcuffs off.
New York State, you heard it. We need to add like nursing back into VOTEC. We need to add other skills into VOTEC. You've heard it. You need to start teaching people skills that are going to be needed.
Well, or hey, business skills. How can you right. Yeah. Business.
Well, again, it's all light. These are all light. I consider them to be life skills. I learned about DBT a while ago, and I just, for someone that either lives with mental illness or doesn't, they can benefit from them. You don't have to have mental health struggles. And again, writing out a check, learning about business and interest and how credit cards work, all these things that I truly believe, can help. Money management, time management. These are all all that these are all variables in the mental health, I think.
Yeah, oh definitely. Oh definitely. And like so before I got COVID, I was actually about to take on a school counselor role. That was going to be what I was going to do. And then COVID knocked me out. But looking at that, you have one, maybe two counselors for 400 students, 400 students. And then the teachers are stressed out. I was teaching students with autism at the beginning of the pandemic when it started. That was what I was doing, and then having to change at the drop of a hat and do this and again a field that's already stressful, and then the pandemic happens, and then the hours that you're trying to make stuff work, your own mental health, your own figuring out your own family stuff, and then not having access to mental health, and then the mental health care workers are stressed out, and then you get sick and you're trying to get an appointment so you can go back to work, but then you can't get an appointment because there's no appointments for months because there's no workers because of the pandemic or because burnout happened, due to this. So, and it's like, and it just builds and builds and builds. And it's like, where does it end? Where can we help it? And I commend so much the people that are there and, through it all, they are still going. Props to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, mad props to everyone out there in the healthcare field because a lot has been expected of you at this point, and that was not part of signing up for a lot of those jobs for people. And so we commend you. And even though the tributes at 7 o'clock at night have ended long, but not to us because we truly do know the cost and the toll that it's taking.
For sure. I want to just bring a little bit of a funny to the episode, just because we were talking about what we were just talking about, and I saved this meme on my phone, and it's a guy, he tweeted, I think he tweeted or whatever it's called, but it's he posted, "I'm glad I learned about parallelograms instead of how to do taxes. It's really come in handy this parallelogram season." It's just, I think it just fits with what we're talking about. It's like, yes, this stuff is all good and dandy, but like, you can't apply it unless you have these emotional regulation skills, unless you have these interpersonal effective skills, and I truly believe it's all an intrinsic job. So, as we, instead of, punishing kids for not coloring the tree wrong, maybe we explore their what they're thinking about the tree and why they colored it purple, or just more individualistic type stuff. That's
Oh,
just me.
no, don't definitely. And I think, when thinking about what we've talked about too, there's so much stress in all areas, and where do the answers come from? Again, we don't have it right here, but we can start to hypothesize about it, where everything needs an overhaul. And if you think about it, if the skills are learned, from a young age, if care is given to families and they're not stressed about housing, stressed about food, stressed about childcare, if that comes off of the family and they can be more present. And then in school, it's a really fostering learning for everyone. Instead of the person that fits within the education model currently. If you change all of this and then you provide, access to care, and people aren't worried about going to the doctor for something because of the bill they might receive. So if you look at all of these factors, and if you kind of work them all out, it ends up creating a hopefully better system where now, okay, you take stress from all of these areas, you kind of fix a little bit in all of these areas, and it creates a better flowing system. In everything, it's life. Things are going to happen. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be, all arounds. Though it's not, one area isn't just the answer. Looking at it all and helping everyone out, a holistic approach to it. And I think that's just one place to start.
Yeah, I personally do think it's a good place to start, just because I feel like some of the other pieces will almost fall into place easier because of that begin, you know what I mean? Because if you're starting at such a young age and learning these skills, eventually, they'll catch on, and obviously, like you said, things are going to happen, you know, and that's another critical thinking skill. Yeah, things are going to happen, and some things we have no control over. And now let's learn how to deal with that, because we can't control something that we have no control over, but we have control over how we see it and how we feel and how we react to it. So let's work on that. Those type of skills, I'm 100% behind for sure.
Yeah, to me, I agree with you. We do need better skills. I I do think a lot of it though stems from the lack of self-reflection. Do you think that the lack of self-reflection, Amber, is actually a reflection of where we're at in terms of what we've done and what we're not doing?
Yes. I think not knowing how to self-reflect and for our individuals, but then as a society as a whole, as all of humankind as a whole, looking at, dang, how did we end up here? And there's some people doing, a lot of people thinking about it, working in their own way, truly for the betterment of humankind, and saving this earth that we're on, and everything like that. Though a lot of times, the lack of self-reflection in at different levels, I think, is detrimental,
To say the least. To say the very least, right? As we're watching literally all our natural resources being pillaged, and we have for years, and we just keep repeating the same cycles over and over again. And unfortunately, our karmic debt is coming due, and then we've been watching it over and over again, I think, in a lot of ways. Timmy, as we're coming around the home stretch here, man, is there anything else that you wanted to ask Amber before we start the lightning round?
If you wanted to put something out there that you needed to say or wanted to say, or, I guess since Will asked, is there something that you would like to say to our listeners, whether they are stuck, whether they're suffering, whether they're looking for a therapist, whatever? Just, is there anything that you would like to say?
Yeah, definitely. I guess I kind of want to this is my kind of life motto, and I want to put it out there to the people, one, the never give up. But I think, no matter where you're starting from, like right now, no matter where you are right now, transformation is possible. Most of us judge ourselves more harshly than others. We perceive a lot of the times other people have it figured out, when the reality is, no, nobody does. We're all just trying to figure it out as we go. Nobody else is the expert of like your own experience, and nothing. It's not good nor bad comparatively, because they don't know your experience. You don't know their experience. Like on our journey, and again, going back to that self acceptance, learning about ourselves. Things are gonna fuck it up. Things are gonna happen. But a lot of the time, willingness is what matters. Something happens, you look at it, and you're like, all right, that happened. What can I learn from it? And you keep going. The privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. And it's like perfectly okay to keep discovering that every single day.
Everyone else is taken, so be who you are.
Yes, exactly.
Amber's dropping bombs over here. Love it.
Good ones. Good ones too.
Thank you for the wisdom. Thank you for everything. Thank you for your time. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been amazing, and thank you for the work you're doing and continue to do. I can't wait to, we can't wait to reconnect with you in a year or two and see what's up and see where you're at and what's going on and all those things. So it's been awesome having you here. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We are going to go to the lightning round. Woohoo!
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding.
Do you have a favorite or a least favorite word?
The first one that came to mind, I guess, was kind of two words together, but if you add the little apostrophe, it's one word, can't. I think can't. I that's something that I've tried. If that if that word comes into mind, like, oh, I can't do that, I look at it. I look at it. And then I think second runner up to that would be should. I should do this. I
Ooh.
should do that. Because when you should on yourself, it just gets messy.
Yes, it
That's what Will
does.
says all the
There we
time.
go.
You
Yeah.
should all over
You
yourself.
could shit all over yourself. Thank you, Tony Robbins, for that one. The next question, I have been changing this up as we've grown in a podcast just because. So I'm going to ask you something I've never asked anybody because I think I might have an interesting answer. What was your favorite toy as a child and why?
Interestingly enough, I'm going to say my own brain was my favorite toy. I don't think I had one physical toy. Looking back, nothing came to mind for a physical toy because I had siblings, but half siblings, they were older, so I ended up kind of being an only child. So I had to just spend a lot of time by myself, and I would create games, create things. Thinking back, I don't remember a single toy. I have a stuffed animal that I've had since I was a baby, but I don't remember a single toy. But I remember creating games, and I remember using the old blue Nesquik tops to like create games and using a golf ball to try to get it into that. And I remember, designing these elaborate things. So I'm gonna kind of not say a physical toy. I'm gonna say my own imagination was my favorite toy.
I love it. That's great.
Creativity is key.
Creativity is key, and I think we lose touch with that as we get older. And it's so sad that we do because I think creative people have been kind of sucked out of the system a lot of times because creative people want to think differently. They don't want to go along with the status quo, so it makes it hard of why that's happened. But thank you very much. That was very cool. Very cool.
That
Yeah.
was awesome. Yeah.
I say, one of my things is I never want to grow up. I think being in touch with my like inner child is honestly what's been healing me the most. For there was a period of time that I tried to mold into something that I wasn't, and I tried not to have these colorful, bright things or my stuffed animals all about my dinosaur post-it note holder, on my desk. And I realized, no, that's not me. This is me. Like
Is that an
looking around,
elephant? Is that an elephant on that?
it is an elephant. Yeah, it's an elephant. It's kind of
Constellations.
yeah, it's like a constellation forming an elephant. The tapestry behind me. I have this big old unicorn, right here. So it's just
Oh,
like,
look at that sucker.
yeah, that's just me. And when I tried to dampen who I was, life wasn't fun for me. Life wasn't fun for me. And but again, going back to that introspectiveness and that inner work of figuring out who I am, who I want to be, and then being okay with that. So
You're staring at Grogu and a Christmas elf here,
Yeah.
so and they're here all the time because they just are. This is their home now.
It's like stuffing that authentic self. It's just not a good thing.
nope, nope. Again,
I like it.
being who you are, it's the privilege of a lifetime. There's nobody else. You're
But
Wow.
we thoroughly enjoy who you are.
well, thank
Yeah,
you.
and thank you for being who you are. Yes, thank you.
Last
That's
question. Sorry, go ahead. Were you gonna say
no,
something?
I was gonna say that's honestly the biggest compliment you can really give it anyone is like, I like you for who you are.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
keep being you, whatever that may be. I'm here for it. I can't wait to see where you take yourself. So
Absolutely. I agree. So the last question, if there was something that you could do or that you would like to see done for mental health as a whole without any kind of restraint, what would it be?
ooh, thinking big here, I honestly just think the access to it and just one, taking away the stigma, two, but giving access, teaching from a young age, I think would be huge. There just needs to be more done to get the knowledge out there, get the skills out there, and again, be accepted. One like mental health days, things like that. Just allowing the time and the understanding, I think, is the biggest thing. Change it all. Keep the parts that work, like the people in the field that are out there dedicated and everything. Some people are getting it right, other places aren't, probably because of different factors that are out of their own hands. But get the education out there, get the skills out there to people. I would say that.
Excellent. Sometimes it's also learning to say no, right?
Yes, exactly. No, I cannot do that.
Wow, thank you so much for your candor and your personality. It's been amazing talking to you. I cannot wait to see and hear what you're doing in another year or two, and you're completing studies and moving on, and we want to hear all about it. Thank you for being genuinely who you are. It's awesome. And your energy shines through, and that smile is infectious. And thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It really has been. When I met you guys at that punk rock, festival, whatever the name of it was, I was like, all right. I was like, this is awesome. A 518, 518, right from them. I'm a big podcast person, and I'm a lifelong learner. Give me all you can. There's hundreds of books next to me on either side, and sometimes just throwing on the podcast in the car, and then having those notes to home. I was telling someone, I'm like, it's so nice to hear something that it can touch anyone. I've shared it with friends, but then if you're from around here, those small notes to home that you're like, yes.
Yeah, we realized it early on because it was hard. Like something about developing these things is hard because most people aren't willing to talk to you in those first 20 episodes. So it's like trying to find those spots. And we've been very blessed as far as the 518 opening itself up to us, which is cool. I mean, Timmy and I have, the punk rock thing. That whole thing is in our in our rear view, and we're part of that community, which makes it even cooler that we can do things like that. But it also opens up a lot of other doors too for different things, and I've met some really cool people and done some really interesting things so far, and we get to meet people like you and share the conversation, because it's really about being willing to share the conversation and even have the conversation. Because that
willingness counts a lot of the time.
Willingness counts, and the intention behind it is what, and the love, and that's what equals legacy for me. So, wow, thank you, Amber, very much for being here this morning. It's been a pleasure talking to you and meeting you again.
The pleasure is twofold. So thank you both so much.
You're very welcome. So until next week, be well.
Be safe.
Be
above.
This episode is brought to you by Nipperfest. Nippertown is bringing you some of the best music from the capital region and calling it Nipperfest. Nipperfest is a local music festival, and it's happening on Saturday, July 23rd at the Music Haven, Central Park, Schenectady, New York. Local food, local craft beer. Did I mention it's free? July 23rd it's happening, so bring down the family. Stop at the Above Ground podcast table to say hi. P.S. This is kid and dog friendly. Thank you for giving us a listen. New episodes every Wednesday. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can share, rate, review, and even subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. Other ways to support the show: follow us on social media, share the content, share our episodes. You can also buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/abovegroundpod. For further concerns, show ideas, or just to say hi, you can email us at abovegroundpodcast@gmail. Once again, thank you for listening and supporting mental health. Keep the conversation going and stay above.